right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening, and we will begin with roll call.
Rob Keller.
Here.
Donna Kramer's absent. Ben Metzger.
Here.
Tim Mills.
Here.
Mac Rankin.
Here.
Ryan Burley.
Here.
Sue Wilson. Here. We have a quorum.
And we will, I'm sure all of you guys have heard the news out of Uvalde, Texas there from Robb Elementary School, so I thought it'd be appropriate to just start with a moment of silence and just say our thoughts and prayers are with the families that are getting some horrific news this afternoon about their children. And I can't imagine as a parent what that must be like and stuff, but we'll just take a few seconds here, do a moment of silence, and then we'll get started with our meeting. Okay, we will move on to our good news that is in our packet there. I'm sure most of you guys have looked at that. A lot of sport information there of the last, at the beginning there from our teams. Mention about the play, and the cool thing is they get to go and do that at the Civic Center. And when is that?
It's early June. I don't know. I don't have the date. Does it happen in there? Let's see here, some information about an alumni. You guys can look through that stuff. I won't go through all of it there. There's some cool information too at the very end of it while you're paging through there about the TLC, the year in review. 33% of teachers who served in the teacher leader capacity this year. 55% of teachers who worked with an instructional coach on a student-focused classroom goal. 1,300 students in core subjects alone saw higher levels of success due to the collaborative work of teachers and coaches. One complete TLC program review resulting in a new exceptional leaders IC and clarification of PLC lead and C&I roles. 34 teachers earned license renewal credits through the new coaching course. That was sent over by Amy, I believe. So. Any additional things from the board members or anything while we're in this good news board member report section?
I was just going to add graduation this Sunday. Jeff and staff did a good job. I can't imagine how much goes into planning that. So thanks for all your hard work on getting that done.
Jason Johnson doesn't talk about that. Just saying.
Very, very nice assist. But thank you to Stacy and all your people over there that put in the hard work. Well done.
I had a chance last week to get over to Irving for a couple hours. Got to visit with Derek and tour the building. And I will say I was very, very impressed with his demeanor and how much the kids really enjoy him over there at that school. I was very impressed with that. So kudos to him for building those relationships with all the grade levels there.
Anyone else? Okay. Any delegations, petitions, or communications?
Patty Alexander.
Hello, my name is Patty Alexander, and I want to express my sincere gratitude to the board members for all your volunteer work. I'd also especially like to thank the educators and staff of our district for being such dedicated professionals. I believe we all have the best interests of our kids at heart. We know you'll be doing some goal planning in the future, and we are asking you to consider bringing the classic literature back into our curriculum. Instead of books that teach kids about hate, sex, and abuse, we need books that teach kids about communicating with others and how to love themselves and others and how to work together. We need books that teach kids how to think and not what to think. Certainly you've heard of All for One and All All for One and One for All, The Three Musketeers is a novel by Alexander Dumas. What can kids learn from this classic? They can learn that successful leaders and managers build a team of independent thinkers who work confidently together while pursuing the same objective. Another classic, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. If you want a story about an oppressor, this classic is for you. C.S. Lewis said, "It is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies. Let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise, you are making their destiny not brighter, but darker." We can find many brave knights and heroic courage in the Chronicles of Narnia. What about Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book? The Jungle Book explains how human beings are just one species among many that occupy the earth, and how we should respect both the environment and the rest of the species that inhabit it. My fingers are stuck. Do you want an inspiring graphic novel? Try Shackleton's Journey by William Grill. Our students are hungry for purpose, stability, and positive virtues. Let's feed them with literature that is wholesome and hopeful for their future. Let's feed them with literature that has wonderful messages that make them better people. Let's feed them with literature that teaches them about people, places, science, math, history. Let's feed them with literature that empowers them to face future problems with solid virtues, strength, and courage. Lastly, if we are introducing controversial literature, I would like to share some trusted parental resources that have honest reviews of books. Ratedbooks.org gives a rating of the book and allows parents to see the actual questionable content. PluggedIn.com has truthful reviews of movies, games, and books. Thank you. Thank you all for serving our community and our students. We hope you'll take this information into consideration as you review your goals and priorities for our district.
Thanks, Patty. Anyone else? Next is our consent agenda. See the motion. Motion made by Ryan. Second. Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Any presentations tonight? Nothing. Okay. Presentations. All right. Next is our is letter G under district. Here are handbooks. There was a summary of changes in your board packet. The entire handbook is listed of each of the handbooks are listed in a separate email where all of them were attached. Did anyone have any questions in regards to any of the handbooks there? We got the K through 12 student handbooks, meet and confer, activities, transportation, and health services. Jeff, I have a question for you, just in regards to the changing of the high school handbook for the hoods and hats, I guess. I'm just trying to understand that change.
So, what I would say this year, one change we had made in the previous year was we allowed them in commons areas. And it's shown to not be an issue. And in the classroom, I think there's a lot of different opinions on how they want to address it from a teaching standpoint, which it's really up to the teacher if they're going to address that as a concern or not in their own classroom. So my thought here was, after surveying staff, is we really wanted to give them that opportunity to make that decision for their classroom management. Because, I mean, I hate to say it's not considered as a blanket policy, so I wanted to find a way where I could still give that classroom teacher where, for whatever reason, it's a distraction for them, the ability to address it, but in another environment where it's not a distraction or it's not a problem. So, more for them to also be able to have students come and feel comfortable with that as well. can tell you, for examples, that we have some students who utilize that as a coping mechanism for their own mental health. And there are times where in those situations, those students have to end up in the office because it's not allowed, so you have to remove them from the setting. I think this is just another way to mainstream those kids and not draw attention to them and provide them that ability to do that in the classroom without seeing it being as an issue. So overall, as the year progressed, I would say in the beginning of the year, when at lunchtime we'd see a lot of hats. But by the end of the year, we looked around the other day and I was like, there's like 2 hats in the whole cheer right now. I think, like I said, I don't think it's really a big issue, but just a little bit of flexibility, I think goes a long way with some of the issues that we're dealing with and some of the issues that may not have big issues. So that was kind of the thought behind it. I can tell you when asking the staff about it, I got a third that didn't care, a third that cared, and a third that just said, I want the option. So that was kind of a compromise how it was written there. I actually had 2 other versions ahead of that before landing there. But that was the thought behind it.
With that policy, like, do the kids respect that from the different teachers kind of like the cell phone rule? Like, one teacher says you can have it, another teacher says you can't have it.
Yeah,
Or does it
and I
cause
think,
confusion?
that's been brought up. I would tell you, our teachers who have those expectations, and as long as they're consistent, they don't have issues with it. I mean, when kids come into their classrooms, no matter what the issue is, if they're setting the expectation for their students typically follow it. I would say the gray areas are where we have issues, and it's when you're not consistent, and that's more of a management issue than a rule or a policy issue in my mind.
Will there still be a rule that if the hat or the hoodie or whatever that's being worn is distracting, or it's distracting the kid from learning or distracting other students, can that teacher still require them to take that off? Or?
Yeah, and as it's written, that's why that was put in there. That was one of the suggestions made by a teacher, was I still want the ability to enforce that. For example, if we're taking a test, I don't want hoods up and I don't want to worry about earbuds being in, so that would be an expectation maybe for that given day. But again, I think aside from the second line there, aside from teachers' expectations, anytime a hat or hood is a distraction or limits a teacher's or a student's view, it will not be allowed in the classroom. And the way that's written is to deter any larger items being worn. So again, you get back to that costume type stuff, which is also addressed in our dress code. It's really to deter those types of things so they're not a huge distraction in the classroom or a visual distraction for that matter.
That was the only thing that I had. I don't know about the rest of you guys, what your thoughts are.
I caught that, but I thought that it was, I thought it was updated because of the religious or medical reasons, which I thought was an appropriate adjustment for that. I guess, whether it's an inconsistency on the fact that we have a hard line, or whether it's an inconsistency because a teacher doesn't necessarily enforce a certain thing, but I mean, it does provide that ability for each teacher to manage their own classroom the way that, I think as it's written, that's what my interpretation was. That teacher has the freedom to enforce a policy the way that they would like it to be in their room. Yeah, I guess my question as you were talking was, when you say some folks, it's almost like a comfort or a mental health thing. Is that because they're like covering their eyes all day, like they don't, or is that not?
No, for an example, we would have had a student in the past who, if they were having a bad day,
Yeah.
their acknowledgement of that is their hood would be up. Mm-hmm. So we would know when we see that kid in the hallway, okay, it's okay, it's been communicated, that's okay.
Right.
Because that's a healthy way to deal with that situation versus, we're gonna have a power struggle now with this student
Right.
to pull a hood down or not, and they're just gonna end up in the office anyway now because they're gonna flip out because they're trying to deal with their own lives. And,
Right.
and that was a real simple solution to that situation, so we've allowed that for us to take place.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything?
I got a whole slew if you're ready for me.
Oh, go ahead.
And I don't know if this is across the boards, and it won't download on my little friendly thing here. So can you go to either the elementary or middle school handbook, please? Well, okay, we can start here. Is this the high school one?
That's high school.
Okay, so scroll back, like go down. No, to page like 25. So I did a lot of communication with some of our leaders kind of over at the high school as well, Jeff. So for the vaping and the nicotine and tobacco, the first offense may include up to 3 days of in-school suspension. Is there a reason why we just took the may include up to out of like the alcohol first offense and went straight to 5 days out of school suspension? Instead of just may include up to, because I still think that's like really harsh when it comes to the first kid that's maybe, I don't know, like I've had an incident where, and not in this school district, somebody came to school with something in their water bottle, alcohol. Well, later to find out they had the alcohol because it has sugar in it and there's no food in the house. So that at least took away the headache, it at least took away the hunger. You know what I'm saying? So I guess to other board members, do we go from a first offense with vaping, nicotines up to 3 days of in-school suspension? And then we switch just to alcohol or intoxicants and it's straight 5 days out of school suspension? Or can we use words as may include up to, so your staff does have the ability to say, hey, this person is coming off of a trauma-informed incident. We know that there's a lot of stuff going on in this family right now. It's probably gonna be better to keep them in school and under our supervision than just to release them at home for 5 days. And maybe that's more of a discussion that's not here, but more in a different, and this is kind of, so that's my first one, like, is this worth other discussions about, if our ultimate goal is to try to keep these kids on the right path, is 5 days out of school where parents may or may not be around. Is that the route we want to go down? And do some of these situations call for a little bit of grace because of who we're dealing with? I don't know. So that's the first thing to think about. And these are just things to think about. But the other thing in the elementary, the middle school, and the high school, and Jeff, you might be able to correct this, but if you go to Ray in there, the good conduct, it talks about you can decrease the amount of activities or games you miss if you choose to get counseling at your own expense, outside counseling at your own expense.
That's for a second offense.
Yeah.
First offense we can do within our system.
Right.
The second offense, it does go with that.
So I'm gonna totally play the card that I will play is if families don't have the means to pay for the help, are we creating a barrier for kids not to be able to continue to move their process to get them back in the activity that they want to get in? So, yeah, I would have had it pulled up here, but my thing's not working.
If you're, regular high schools, it's at the very, almost at the end, the regular policy is for the good conduct. There was no changes within that this year, so it would be in the notes.
This is the actual policy.
So Sue, do you think there should be no consequence?
No, I'm thinking, what is their alternative? If they can't afford to go get an outside source to do a counseling with,
It's not required to do that.
So, if we're giving this group over here because they can afford to go get outside counseling and they can reduce the amount of games that they miss because they went and did this, and this isn't an option over here for this family because they don't have money to do that, then they just have to sit all 5 games. It just seems a bit, I don't know if we can, interject our mental health counselors that we have on site, our contracted staff. I don't know if the district has, but employee and family resources, there is so much that our school district should be tapping into for the integrated provider network for Warren County. The Iowa Department of Public Health has a huge grant for Warren County right now, and they have so many programs that we could bring in on the second offense or on whatever offense we see it fit in there and make, some of them are small group programs, some of them are one-on-one, some of them are, a lunch bunch group for 6 sessions, or something. We would have to be a little creative, but it's that second paragraph. Students will be allowed the option of completing scheduled counseling services with an outside agency at their own expense, dealing with issues pertaining to the good conduct violation. So if you choose this option, you get to reduce your consequences by a half.
One thing I would add to that, though, I've seen in other districts, I've seen policies where that's not even allowed on a second offense. Typically, a first offense I've seen is you've been able to knock that down on a first offense. On a second offense, a lot of times you wouldn't even have that option. So I don't know if that's why it was put in there as a...
No, I think it's a great option, but I think we need to be creative on how to provide an option for those that can't afford it.
And with those, how timely are some of those resources? Because the other side of it is it needs to be completed in order to cut it down by half.
Right.
So if we're talking, say, like baseball, we have a lot of games.
Well, then we need to put something in there, then it needs to be with our own on-staff mental health therapists for those that don't have.
I don't even understand why
Expenses.
we would have something on a second offense.
5 games.
Sorry, you screwed up twice.
Yeah,
You don't get a second, like,
Well,
I don't
and
think
that's
anyone
up to
should
you
have
guys,
a, that's twice, you're in trouble, like.
I just can't, the people that, some of the reason why people are in athletics and activities all over is to be out of the house, is to be engaged, is to be part of something that they might not get in their home.
I
And
understand that, but they should also know that there's rules, and if it's a second offense.
Right, you can take the whole thing out, what I'm saying is we cannot offer something over here for the people that can afford it.
I agree,
And
I
something
agree.
over here for people that
I
can't
totally
afford it.
see what you're saying there. I would be for taking that out of the second one. Leave it, is the first one's a third of it will reduce your consequences by a third of the original consequence if you choose this option.
Now, I think, to be honest, with these first and second offenses, I think there needs to be some intervention of something of some sort.
Right, but I don't,
And
I
so-
agree. I
So,
just
and I don't know,
you should
maybe
get
that's,
something back
maybe
by
that's
just-
our, I don't know what that looks like, but I don't think it can certainly come with a cost. And so maybe this is just things for us to put in our work session. I don't know. I'm just bringing them up for us to think about.
Can these be revised at any time?
The board could choose to do that.
I guess I would
Typically,
suggest if there's any revisions, it's done before the fall season start.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't wanna start this in the middle of a school
Right.
year, because it could potentially affect somebody that has already had to go through it.
Jeff, is there any kind of a blip that says any parent's request for consideration outside of these punishments as listed, that there's a mechanism for that? Like, I mean, because here's what goes through my head. So I put on like a legal hat when I start thinking of can be up to 10 days. If we don't have consistency across the board, then that leaves us at some kind of vulnerability of not being consistent. And so then somebody's bringing, well, Joey, you treated this way, and Julie, you treated this way. I mean, you gave Joey 3 days, you gave Julie 5 days. I mean, what's that look like? And so I guess in some ways, I understand I hear Sue's comments, I agree with them. I also see why you have them set the way you do, and you have the experience behind that. I'm curious if there's a mechanism anywhere written in these documents that specifically gives a parent or even an administrator on behalf of a student to make any appeal to reconsider a decision or whatever. And is that a bad idea? I mean, I would.
I mean, just looking at these policies, like when we talk about the vaping, the alcohol, those things were set.
Right.
I don't know how long they've been.
Yep.
But I can tell you, we deal with probably far more of the vaping situations than we ever do the alcohol situations.
Right.
So why is that not been adjusted in my time? Probably because we don't deal with it very often.
Right.
What did it come from, Jeff? What was the old vaping policy and what is?
That is the old vaping policy. So
Oh,
then-
nothing's changed on it then?
No, so in my notes, the only thing that has changed in those policies is the highlighted stuff. Those are the things I'm suggesting adding. So for example, with the alcohol, we felt that at a second offense with a 10-day, we added that substance abuse evaluation piece because at that point we have a problem. This isn't just a one-off thing where your kids getting in trouble.
And the school liaison juvenile court is involved in that, right? Because I believe if they go that route, then the substance abuse evaluation is free through that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
when we,
yep.
when going through that, I include him because he knows that.
And then the
Tell
kids,
parents that Mount House is the option,
yeah,
so that they can get that done. And then it's based, then they make their recommendation for that family, whether it's drugs or alcohol, doesn't matter.
but he can do it too if they don't have the money to pay for that, I think. I think the courts system do. Okay, okay.
Because, when he talks about it, he said, I think he tells them that it's,
I think it's included in when they have to go through the court.
Well, the first one says you have meetings with the juvenile court
Right.
liaison.
Yeah.
And is that service discontinued after your second offense or no? How does that work?
typically if it's going through the courts, then he's involved on intake. Okay. If it's a minor anyway, and that's always a suggestion anyway too. So it kind of goes along with what the school says, because ultimately they end up doing it.
I would be for removing that language out of the second offense, Sue, because I understand what you mean. You have one family that thinks, well, I can get my kid back into the games and stuff here if I just get him into what's required by this. And you have this family who doesn't have that option because they have no money to be able to do that. So I see that as an equity issue there, and I would be, it's a second offense, like,
I would want to get Mr. Nelson involved in that conversation because the good conduct was written, and I didn't propose any of those changes, so I think it'd be important.
okay.
to
You
bring that-
think
to
other
together
schools
to
don't
be-
have that, though? Other schools don't
I
have
think
that
it
in the
varies.
second?
And not every school is the same. I can tell you my last school, we did not have that option.
Yeah.
For a second offense.
Yeah.
And I know in
I'm surprised
the
we
school
do.
where I taught, there was not that option. But I'm sure there's other ways that people do it too.
And I'm all about trying to help out a kid if that kid wants to be helped and that family wants to help. If we can try to get them some type of help, I'm all for trying to do that in whatever way, if they can't afford it, you know. I don't know what that looks like or how that
Sue, is
happens.
there a resource? So you say with like the outreach in the Warren County options, can parents be put on to those resources in that situation, or does it have to come from the school?
Well, we just have to say, hey, these are the 4 resources that our school district is really interested in employee and family resources having available. Yeah, but, and I don't know if this is high school in there either. Do you have, I know the elementary one and the middle school also has that they have to do 3 counseling sessions with their guidance counselors. Is that just middle school and high school? Okay, so my concern on that was, I think we need to make sure we're mainstreaming what they're going through in those 3 sessions with the guidance counselors as to what's being addressed. And just looking at making sure, like you go back to that, this guidance counselor is addressing exactly what the other are addressing in that. I think that was in, the first offense for elementary. The other thing, Jeff, you did a really nice job in here. and something, I don't know whoever is taking notes, but in the high school one, they do, and I think it's towards the beginning, they do have it in there about the professional, like the mental health therapists that are contracted. Jeff has a nice section in there, but the elementary nor the middle school handbooks mention anything about the professional counselors that we have on staff. And so I think if we can just copy and paste what the high school has, it's the exact same thing, just that we have people on staff that are, that we have contracted to be able to have services for them. So I don't know. Might be, actually, Ray, will you scroll to the top of it, because I think it's at the beginning of this, at the high school one, but it's just a little blurb. Yeah, I think so. I think it was like page maybe 4 or 5. And it just is like letting parents know, because I think that's one thing that isn't, yeah, so I think he has it as just professional school counseling services or something like that. So that wasn't in the elementary or the middle school handbooks at all.
I don't know if that's in the high school. So.
No, you did have a nice little, unless you were talking about the guide, but it was.
We have it on our website. But I can't place it back.
Search for counseling. I feel like I remember reading. Which,
I noticed, I thought it was the middle school and the elementary didn't have anything about that we have these contracted services. And probably not a bad spot to put the wellness website as well on there for people to know where to find it. I should have wrote down the page number. Or I can find it later tonight and send it on to Donna or whoever. But I think it's important for our middle school and elementary to, there it is. Free full-time counselors are available before school, during the school day, after school day, and other times by appointment. Students are free to, yeah. So, so are you talking about guidance counselors there? Or are you talking about our professional mental health therapists?
that'd be the counselors.
Yeah. So I think we need to put somewhere in these handbooks that we do have, that our district has moved towards contracting mental health therapists that are in our schools. I mean, we have everything in these handbooks, from when they're allowed to eat and go to the bathroom to what they wear. So if we can't get a little blurb in there, just that we have, I think it's important for our community to realize that we've made it a commitment. So something like that in all 3 of the handbooks, just stating that there are mental health not full-time, but well, there is at the high school and the middle school, but, and then there's someone available at the elementaries. To help. And then under that blurb, if we could add something, whereas we have a lot of really nice mental health resources on the wellness tab on the website, because I still don't think people know about that. And I still don't know if a lot of our employees know about the resources they get and some of the help that they can get too. So, let me see what else I have. That's probably, oh, and there are spots in there that, if we're gonna approve these, that art is still listed. So, isn't it? I don't know if that's a concern of people. But, and I will have to say, if somebody wants to look through the elementary one, halfway through the elementary handbook, it says that the middle school guidance counselors will direct all discipline. So I think maybe we just forgot to copy and paste something wrong. So,
It's in the elementary.
yeah, and the elementary one talks about the middle school, under the good conduct, for the elementary one, under the good conduct, it says the middle school administration team. So, I don't know, I just caught that, but I figured if we were approving them, we were supposed to I don't know, pick up the little things, I don't know.
Yeah. That's good.
You
So
want to
Jonathan,
approve them, or do you want to?
we can approve all but the K through 12 student handbooks, couldn't we? That's the only ones with questions,
We
right?
could change those, or,
We could just approve the 2 through 5. If, I'm assuming we should wait, since we're talking about changes, to just, or can those be,
Why?
can those meet and confer activities, transportation, health
Oh.
services?
Oh, you meant like on that,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like
those-
second
those,
through fifth, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, the 2nd through 5th handbooks available. K through 12, I don't know what's proper to do, I guess, John.
That's what you're talking about, right?
yeah.
Well, hold on.
I didn't know.
Well-
In your policies, you would give like a first read, second read. This isn't like that, but is that what you want to parallel this to, is to get those changes addressed, to bring them back rather than just approve and say these are going to change?
So yeah, this is elementary where it says middle school counselors, right? Yeah, so I don't know how excited middle school counselors are gonna be if we send them a bunch of elementary students. But also this presents to, has this already in there? Like, is this already in policy or in the handbook? This isn't new, right?
I don't know.
Not this stuff.
So, it would be interesting to get the middle school counselor's perspective on this, and if that's just overloading them. If we have 16 middle schoolers get in trouble for something, I know it's an option, but just something to bring to their attention as well. But yeah, if this is the elementary handbook, I should it really say that the middle school counselors are gonna deal with them?
Probably not. I'm guessing. I don't know.
I can't imagine they would be, I think their hands are full at the middle school.
I'm assuming it's an elementary school
assuming with
counselor.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
in May of their 7th grade year.
So let's,
My preference would be that
Should
we
we
wait.
table? Yeah.
we'll table K through 12 and we'll just vote the rest then.
So 2 different actions.
Okay, so we would need a vote to table K through 12 until the changes are made. And then we'd also need a second motion and vote.
I'll make a motion that we table K through 12 handbooks until we have some time to look at changes and work on wording.
Okay, motion made by Sue to table. Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board on K through 12? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Need a motion to approve, meet and confer activities, transportation, and health services.
Move to approve the meet and confer activities, transportation, and health services handbooks for 2022-2023.
Motion made by Ben to approve. Seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. So we can just, somebody will help get those in the hands of who those need to be changed. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, John. Great. And Sue for
Thanks for coming tonight, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Next is the, next is the board curriculum committee. Sorry, I can't get to the page fast enough. I think it's like 31, yeah, 31.
Okay. A couple of things. Gotta learn about the PLC collaboration cycle. There's a picture there on page 34. Kind of walks you through a cycle that our teachers would go through on a typical Wednesday, early out, throughout the year, probably multiple times. And you can just read real quickly each subcategory of the cycle, just to get an idea of what that professional learning community looks like. It was kind of cool to do this. So first step is that inquiry, as you can see. In general, first question is just what learning needs do our students need, or do they have? And moving on to designing a project or an activity out of that need that the students have. And teaching it, of course. Going back to assessment, how did the students do with it, the particular activity, the particular lesson, how well did they learn it? And then sharing that, collaborating with other teachers in the department. Things that worked, things that didn't work. And then a reflection, part of the cycle is just how did the students do that didn't happen in the cycle, they didn't respond very well. So how did the teacher respond to that? And then evaluation, of course, at the end, and what changes may need to be made, or was it a great success? And then it kind of cycles through that throughout the year, throughout different aspects of the classroom throughout the year. So that was, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit more, because I don't know if that caught the, but that's the, kind of the general idea of the Wednesday early outs with professional learning communities and how they go through a process of inquiring, designing, teaching, then we spent a little bit of time understanding how a rubric that Inyo has in design and establishing whether or not a book maybe, for instance, we went through 2 books for English 11-12. This rubric is applied to 2 books that were recently suggested for the classroom, or a graphic novel, and you can kind of see that. There it goes through, I think it's 5 different criterion that they would have to pass through in order to get through this rubric, and you can just kind of, I won't go through everything there, but and these 2 books in particular, there was a panel of 3 individuals that read the books, went through the rubric after having read the book, and would decide whether or not each of these criteria were met, not met, exceeded. And so this is something that's been in our school district, this rubric, for a while, but maybe it wasn't used always. But I can share more. She's kind of been introducing this as a must-have.
So I would say historically, what I've come to understand is that, for example, at the high school level, when they would select their novels, they would have perhaps about a half a year when they were informed they had some money to either repurchase books that they have or to purchase new books. That last occurred for our high school English department in 16-17. And at that time, about 54 books were purchased, anywhere from 10 copies to 40 copies. So it could be small group, individual student choice, whole class. Over the last couple of years, when I took a look at that, it didn't make sense in the terms of, if you were going to select a lot of new books, for teachers to have time to develop their lessons, match their assessments, those types of things, they really need more than 1 year on that purchasing cycle. So I went and met with the high school English department and said, I'd really like to stretch this out over 2 to 3 years so that you have time, to make those selections and really to develop your curriculum. They were all in favor of that. I would say at the same time, in society, there became a much more of an intense focus on novels that are being read, right? In looking at that, I really didn't find a process that was being used to go through novels for the selection piece. The rubric that's on here is one that I found in some files. I didn't find records so much of its use past then. And it's a little bit more based on textbooks and programs, but there are components in it that apply to novels. And so I kept adding different pieces to it to, for example, adding in there a question like, does this meet board policy? So everything that we have here, are they also looking at those things? The other part that we're kind of trialed was, you'll notice one of the books, Kim Grissom, who's one of the high school teachers I was working with, we were talking about how can we get some community perspective. And so at that point when we were talking, we said, okay, if we could reach out to 3 community members, and that's where the 3 selections came from, like a mental health therapist, a former teacher, and somebody who had a special needs child in our district. What would they say in looking through those components of our board policy, just trying to get some input? And I think what you would find is, even as you would on material reconsideration committees, there are different opinions as to appropriateness when you're trying to take a look at the language from our policies and selecting that. The other book that was being recommended, that's where they took 3 students and said, let's get your perspective on this, so you could see the types of questions they were asking. So we're trying to find something that works well to where when there are recommendations to the board, you feel that you have enough information. We've had your licensed teachers giving their input as for their recommendations, but then also trying to get some different perspectives that might be feasible for them. Part of what we were taking a look at too was how much time is involved. Are you able to get diverse opinions? Does that influence what you would recommend to the board too? So that's kind of the background for these. It's kind of that trial piece of getting your input and seeing, does this type of process work for you? Because it really hasn't been done historically. And I know that it probably would not be the best to bring you a list of 50-some novels all at once, because you have a job to do also, just as they do. And so it really is kind of an opportunity to see, what are you thinking, what are you feeling, and trying to align too with what we were looking for through board policy to make those recommendations. And I know you've seen the rationale for these. One is to replace a book that probably is much more highly controversial these days, and trying to be responsive to society and our community, to replace that one and not use that one in the course next fall. And the other one was to offer another choice for students, because that's another route, as you saw when we talked about some of the AP literature options. Can we provide choices to parents so that if some don't fit their needs and others do, you're trying to, again, kind of have a menu of things that still help that teacher meet the standards that they need to teach along the way. So
I thought this was nice, because I hadn't seen it before in the last couple of years and stuff, so I thought it was nice. It was helpful for me. I did reach out to Kim just because I saw her name and I thought, oh, I'll just call her and see. Had a good conversation with her, and she was able to kind of walk me through it, so I understood it and everything, and she presented it well to me. I'm thankful that you and teachers are being responsive to the current situation and kind of where society is and our community is right now. So I am thankful for that. The one thing I was just for clarification would be, I know I've received prior email notification for when something may be a little bit more controversial, or maybe not controversial, but maybe of a more mature subject matter. And I didn't know, is that up to a teacher to decide to send that notification out to parents? Or is that just a standard in all of our schools that, like, hey, if this book or movie that we're going to be watching is laced with profanity or has sexual topics in here, or racial topics, do we give parents like a heads up always in that situation? Or is that on a teacher by teacher basis to decide, or one teacher may do it and then another teacher may not do that?
I would say at this point, it probably is on a teacher by teacher basis. I haven't seen anything in any of our handbooks or guidance to staff, and nor in board policy. And so I would say it definitely has been more of, historically, teachers trying to keep that communication open with parents.
Sure.
And I think if something needs to be pursued an example to say, if there is something like that, this
Yeah.
is highly encouraged, or however
Yeah.
that wording might be.
Right.
And I don't know where that would be placed unless it is in the building teacher handbooks, or
I don't know if the teacher would be or teacher handbook, where that might be placed either. So,
Yeah, we can talk about that more,
Yeah.
or policies or wherever that would come, or maybe in our planning and stuff. I think a little bit of notification goes a long ways and helps, okay, I can make a good decision for my child based upon the information the teachers provided to me, so.
And I think
I've always appreciated
Yeah,
that.
and I think some of those details can, in pursuing something like that, would also help the teachers, because we had a teacher recently who reached out to explain to parents the options. And there was some, I think, high-level concern from one parent about how much time was provided in the front end to respond. Is that open communication to give parents information? So more consistency, I think, would then help that to not be seen as like an isolated case.
Right.
So
I
also
agree.
on the teachers' end, they want to do
Right,
great things too,
Yeah.
and how can we support them
yeah.
with that?
Yeah, I got first, they're showing a movie in the 7th grade, and we were given just the trailer and what we thought of it, and if we chose not to have our kid in that, then they come up with an alternative activity, but I had never heard of it, but looked at the trailer, and it's supposed to have some violence and language in it, but the overall concept was one that I thought was going to be very, very interesting, and so I appreciated learning about that, and I sent a note back to the teacher just thanking him, because I think this really has a lot of problem solving and good content in it.
I think something else too that we're watching right now is in legislation, what would come out of the parent transparency piece. So just watching that to see what some of the requirements might be, how would we go about providing that to parents, just as another level. So I'm just watching that, and we'll see. We have other things that we can do regardless, right? We want to go above and
Right.
beyond what's required.
I appreciate
So
that.
we're kind of watching those things too. But for these tonight, then I did put those in there, had Jonna put those in there as 2 separate action items. If there is something that you feel like you can support, we would move forward with that. If there's something you feel like you can't support as a board, any type of feedback to improve this process, because again, we're trying to follow board policy and put you in a good position where you feel comfortable with your decisions, and the teachers also feel good knowing that they have those guidelines for recommendations that they're making.
I like the process. Are those 3 individuals are they different individuals each time, or would they be
Now, we
somebody that would
haven't
serve
done
for
it
a while?
before, we've only done it once. I know there was some concern about the amount of time that it takes.
Sure.
And you'll probably get a variety of opinion back anyway. So the question was, how much did that influence the teacher's final decision to make the recommendation?
Uh-huh.
And so if that's something that you feel is highly important as a board, we can continue doing that. If not, then we can use the rubric itself and the department or team's recommendations. It's interesting for them at times to get the student input at some levels. We even tried to do that with for example, the science curriculum we're looking at the elementary level, trying to see what students think too. So it depends on how formal you want it and what you would like to see us to do continually moving forward.
We're
I
not,
think,
we're not needing to vote on that, but you're just kind of wanting to hear what our thoughts are with how you guys did on that.
Right, because
Okay.
like I said, with 50 books,
Yeah.
even if they had 10, they just would need to know on pacing and timing and how to get some of that done.
I think anytime you can bring somebody in that's their specialty outside of it to evaluate it. I talked to Kim earlier today, and having a mental health therapist evaluate the dark matter of Mona Star. Even Kim said she brought up points that would have never even crossed her mind from her professional mindset. And so I think anytime we can bring in people that specialize in the matter and are reading this, and our community members, I think that's a good best practice, because they do bring perspective that none of us or our teachers or our students can bring. So I do think that it covers that.
don't know, I think that was really valuable, especially in that book.
Any other board members have any thoughts or opinions on that? To share? Did you, or feedback for Annette? Did you guys like that?
I like it. I like having three. I think that is a good idea, moving forward. What's the cycle of books? What's the life cycle, I should say, of a book being taught before there would be another group of 5 or what have you?
Yeah, so some of them, they just continue to repurchase those as they wear out. They just ask for their orphan enrollment increases, and they need more for their class set. We increase it that way. Again, in the policy, it talks about being in tune also with your society and your community value morals in those pieces. And so as things have become, I guess, more of a topic in society for us, that's why what they were saying, the one novel that they have now this fall, that probably isn't appropriate anymore in our context. So that's one that can be culled and removed, and is there something to replace it with? So different life cycles, whether it's a hard copy or a paperback, but they continue to try to go through and also take a look at the standards, student interests. You have quite a few of those things listed in the board policy regarding culture. And so they just try to keep all those in mind when they're making a selection.
Yeah, that was just a question as to like the labor that would go into and the coordination that would go into, just like for this Born and Crime book, where there were 3 community members. It was just every so often that was going to be something that if we wanted to move that direction versus every year if there's 2 or 3 of these and we would need to get 6 to 10 people involved in this, that'd be a little cumbersome. But it's just, these works do have a longer life cycle where it'd just be here and there, there'd be an introduction of a new book or removal of a book.
Typically, they've been on a 7-year cycle,
Okay.
and that's why in every 7 years it would be, like, here's the funding, what would you like to replace and purchase, but that's a lot in 1 year. So that's why we're trying to say 2 to 3 years, and has things changed, and then that way it takes a little bit of that pressure off of them to do an adoption all at once.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
So, you're requesting approval of those 2 books, board approval. You just need, that would be an action item for each of those.
You can do them together unless you're going to not approve
Okay.
them.
Or we
I
can
put
do
them
together.
separately in case
In
there
case you wanted to.
Yeah, in case you wanted to, so.
I'll make the motion to approve both, Born and Crime and Dark Matter of Mona Star.
Motion made by Sue to approve,
Second.
seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Motion, and that was both of them, sorry.
A quick question.
Yeah.
As far as picking the individuals, who is picking the individuals to review those books? Is it the staff? Is it you? Is it?
Because this is the first time we've done that, it was a conversation between myself and Kim, just saying, how could we get some different perspectives based on the students in the classroom? So that was the request because of a parent that has a special needs student that has gone through those classes, a mental health therapist, because some of those are concerns for students that are in those courses. And the third one was a former teacher for Indianola, so trying to get that perspective of another educator who is no longer on staff, would understand standards and trying to teach those. So that's where kind of the idea came from in terms of selecting those 3 categories. And then they said yes, that they would have the time to read those. I do want to mention before we move on though from that is that there was a third part to the minutes for the committee.
Yeah, wasn't it the science?
Yeah, just an update. We had narrowed it down to 2 companies. One is called Twig and one is called FOSS, which is the Full Option Science System. And that committee met last night and determined that they want to trial the FOSS system at Emerson next year. So we'll be moving forward with getting a kit for every grade level that Maddie Camp then would use. it's been determined that she probably does need a room instead of trying to do things by cart. And so that room's been identified at Emerson, and some leftover computer lab furniture, along with some other things Bernie Brook is going to be putting in that room. It's just very, very exciting to see the students' responses from the trial lessons that have occurred with Maddie when I go over and watch that. So,
How soon do you think you guys will have been able to review and assess and make a recommendation? How soon next year to know if we're going to move forward with all schools?
right, so definitely past enrollment count
Yeah.
for that. I'm trying to think, I think we would know by November, December.
Okay.
Because that would be a large decision.
Right.
We're going to have the committee meeting throughout so that anything that's positive and decisions that are made, we can start thinking about, well, what would that look like in other buildings? We've already talked about spaces there. Some of the people are highly interested in this, are people who are on the committee now. And I'm going to do kind of a professional learning with all the building principals, middle school and high school included, on science practices and education, so we can start beefing that up, K-12 too. So
Would that be 4 full-time positions, or because when you're only has 2 sections, would it be less in one of those
Well,
cases?
actually, at this point, due to the scheduling, the person who would be at Whittier most likely would also be shared with Wilder for part of their day or part of their week, because
Okay.
Wilder has so many extra sections and Whittier is more of a
Okay.
2-section building. So
Okay.
to balance that out, those are some of those things that they've had conversations about or talking to see what does that look like,
So we'd look at 3 new next year.
and maintaining
And B2.
Maddie.
Because right now that's out of COVID.
Actually, this one is not,
Okay.
this one isn't, but we've got other ones that are, so, I mean, again, we're having to look
Yeah.
at the,
Right.
how we shift
Okay.
everything together.
All right. Next is under your HR, issuance of the 2022-2023 contracts. And this is for
Administration.
yes. What's the first?
You can either do them together or separately. There were minor changes on a sheet in front of you. 2 were typos on my part, I apologize, and we rechecked it, and the $2 amounts were wrong. Then the title was wrong on another one, so. It might be better to do them separately.
Start with the
You mean these?
administration. Yep.
On this sheet.
When they fit into it, yeah.
So make a recommendation to approve the list of contracts as recommended for the administration.
Okay. Motion made by Tim to approve the administrative contracts for 2022-2023. Seconded by Ben. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the meet and confer.
There was one that was a nickel off, so I had to correct that.
Make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 meet and confer employees letter of assignment.
And, oh, sorry, we
No.
didn't wait for discussion.
That's okay. Motion made by Mac. Seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion by Sue?
By Chris. Don't start pretty bad.
It's in the minutes.
I have not had the chance to look at this, but this all reflects everything we approved for them to get their.
The increase, yes, that
increase
it's
for
kind of
the
like,
associates
No.
And for everybody.
No, no.
associates already in here, we have to meet with.
Well, because that's the master contract, but this will, like the food service
Right.
and that's all reflected in this stuff.
Right.
Okay,
Yep. Just associates outside of it.
gotcha.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Oh,
No, I'm I get confused on exactly who's part of what. So I have,
Teachers and associates are the only ones in the master contract. Everyone else is in the meet and confer, less the admin and the admin support. So there's 5 groups, I'd say, master contract, meet and confer, admin, and then admin support. So really 4 groups of people, groups
Transportation is all.
in there, right?
Service is all.
And secretaries. These are not associates in the classroom.
None,
Got it. Okay.
we're meeting next week. Yeah, next week with, the teachers wanted to be done with classwork, which we understand, before we could meet with them, so. That will be in June 14th.
I have
I'm
another
gonna go
discussion.
right back to that here in just a second. If you can just remind me in case I forget what you just said. Yeah, that.
And the other one that isn't in there, I guess there is another one, is the coaches. That they'll be coming in June as well. Sponsors.
Because they fall under.
They're kind of, they're under master contract technically, but we
You're
always
a
try.
non-teacher coach.
It would,
Hey, we have some.
we do, we have non-teacher we do, and sponsors. Mhm. Yep. The salaries are built out in the master contract, yes.
Oh, really?
Been kicked out.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that. Only because I've been on.
Oh, because you asked.
I did not, but because you asked the question, now I'm more intelligent on the matter.
It's a master contract. Mhm. So, yep.
All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Carries 6-0. Next is the issuance of the 2022-2023 Administrative Support Specialist Letters of Assignment and Benefits.
And those 2 in the bottom part of that additional sheet in front of you. One of them was a typo. It had and your other sheet, it said 63. It didn't have the 1,000 in there for the 64,000. And then the title change for our district enrollment coordinator.
So that's just a title change. She'll still be doing the same.
She's doing the same thing.
Is there a reason behind the title change? Just it incorporates more of what she was doing, or?
I think that's, yeah. The district enrollment coordinator now, but it was, I think she had
Student Information Systems Analyst.
This actually more accurately reflects what she actually does.
Make a motion to approve the issuance of the 2022-2023 administrative. There's a typo on there. Administrative Support Specialist Letters of Assignment and Benefits.
Motion made by Mac to approve. Seconded by Sue. Any further discussion? By the board?
With the corrections.
Yes, with the corrections.
Favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any no? Motion carries 6-0. What I was just trying to remember is that's June, what was that?
June 14th is our board meeting.
When we open negotiations with the union.
Oh,
July, or June 1st.
June 1st.
June 1st.
At 7:30, yeah.
Is there, there may be a little bit of confusion about what we're doing. I didn't know when would be appropriate to talk about some of that. To make sure, would that be okay right now to talk about?
You're in the human resources area.
Okay, under HR.
Okay, so I was approached by one of the associates who was speaking on behalf of apparently some more associates who did not take the dollar increase as a gesture of goodwill to cover what the governor did not cover. That was not the way it was interpreted. This individual made a comment that they were told that they were going to get another dollar raise when they got their raise to $13.50 an hour. And so,
Last year.
yeah, so they were told, they expressed to me that they were told when they got that raise that took them up to $13.50 an hour, that they were going to get another raise. And so the way that they have interpreted our gesture to give them a raise to create the $1,000 increase appears to them to be something they were already told they were going to get, so it doesn't really look like anything, any sort of an increase. It just looks like you created a tag for it and then gave it to them. That was the feedback that I got. And the other thing that they were
They didn't say
confused
where
on.
that came from.
No, they did not. They did not attribute it. They could not attribute who or in what venue or what group made that claim.
And I can't think back, I thought back trying to think, when we talked about this, I cannot remember saying anything about,
Well, they already have, because we
Another.
have a master contract, and the master contract goes out to 2023, there was an identified increase in there, but it was only at the 2.2% level.
Okay?
So I don't have that in front of me right now.
Right.
And I can get that. So it wasn't $1, it was more like 30 cents or 35 cents, I can't recall exactly. So that was what was already identified in the contract, because we had to lay that out for those additional years.
I guess I'm going back to last year's conversation when it would be just the three of us in here now. When we talked about giving that extra $1, I think we may have said, well, we wish we could do more, but this is what we can do. Someday maybe we can do more and stuff, but there were no promises, there were no numbers mentioned. It was just at that time we were able to do that. So I can't remember anything coming from a board conversation about another $1. Do you guys?
I don't recall that.
I don't remember that at all.
I don't recall it. I know that we were gonna keep our pulse on, how we can
Right,
continue to increase those.
right,
Talk about anything specific.
yeah.
The other comment that was made was that if it was supposed to be for all those that supported and showed up and contributed to the effort to educate and do school, then why was that being given to somebody that's only been hired for the last 3 months? That it devalues the gift, if you will, was the other approach. So we're giving if we, it kind of comes down to what we're trying to do. I tried to explain, well, it's, it was the board trying to do a gesture of kindness because the governor's stuff didn't cover everybody that supported the effort. And so it really wasn't in any way something that I would have ever interpreted to be negative.
Right.
And so, but this particular person said, well, do you understand how that would be? Like you're saying, well, we're not going to give you $1,000, we're going to give you $1 an hour increase, and you're going to get it, but so is this other person who just got hired 3 months ago. Here's this other person that wasn't even here during COVID. And so I just felt like I needed to relay that to all the board members because I did not, when we were trying to do something good, that wasn't even.
Right.
That's part of being in part of a collective master contract issue, because when you are a part of an agreement like that, you're in a class of people. So teachers are, when they come in, they are wherever they are in the schedule. When the associates come in, there is a modified, smaller schedule than what the teachers have. But you are a class of employee, like all our, you could say that with all our meet and confer as well, and everybody, because it is somewhat that, our groups are identified as a class of employee.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mimi, but I feel like what we're trying to do is also bring people up so they're more attracted to work. I mean, it's attracted to work to Indianola Community School District instead of going to Norwalk, going to Carla. We're trying to get our wages up. That's why we're doing it for both associates, meet and confer, we brought all of that.
Well, I think maybe some of those comments will stem from previous conversations of associates really believing that there should be some tiered system for them. So the ones that are working level 3 that can't leave the side and so many years of experience, just as the teachers have, their pay should reflect.
But again, that's
The levels.
dictated by the
But yeah.
contract.
The agreement is.
But I'm saying, I think that's where some of that is coming from, as in, I've been here 3 years, and why do I make the same as this person? And it keeps going back to that you are involved in
And in our meet and confer process, they do every 5 years get a 25-cent increase. So every 5 years, well, I guess I take that back. In 5 years, they get 25 cents, where the people that are 1 year get whatever that dollar amount is, then a quarter. At 10 years, because as we looked at it and as we kind of measured our staff, it seems like most people make it 10 years, but they don't seem to get to 15 always. So at 10 years, we gave a 50-cent increase versus a 25, but then at 15 then years, it goes back to a quarter every 5 years. So give them a boost at the 10-year mark, because that seemed to be, they're here, they've done this for 10 years, we appreciate what they're doing. So we do have that there. In the associate world, in that contract, it is, there are 3 levels of increase. So there's the $13.50 currently, and then it's 14 something for after, I think, 5 years. And then it goes up again to $15.60, I think is what the top one is right now. But it steps them down, versus having the meet and confer does it a little differently. There's more opportunities for increase if they're here for whatever amount of time. There's 3 steps in the associate schedule in the master contract.
I don't know if there's a way, like, if we need to wait till this happens, once it's voted upon and agreed upon by the union and the district, if we could get a message to that group, letting them know what our intentions are in giving them that, like why we did that and what, so there's no confusion. I guess I just feel messaging needs to be.
Yeah.
And I think too part of the confusion comes from the words that the governor herself used.
Yes,
This is a retention
you're
bonus,
exactly
but no,
right.
this is a thank you payment. Thank you for the work you've done. What we're trying to develop is a retention bonus.
Exactly.
Because we want people to continue
Right.
to stay and
Right,
work
but
for us.
then
So-
with that talking point, they feel like they've been left out of the bonus.
Right.
So
Which they have. That was the governor's decision. That was not the school district's decision.
right, but I think my messaging may have been off, because I look at it as, what I'm trying to say is, I felt like we were trying to spread the net further to say thank you. And so my thoughts were that we were trying to address a thank you across the board to everybody that supported it. If that's the wrong talking point, if that's the wrong messaging, and it really was it was $1,000, but it was generated to address retention more than to say thank you, then we're off on our messaging.
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, because when you take a step back and you look at it and you say, hey, associates, the school board and the administration would like to give you an 8.34% raise that's year after year after year, that's giving you the extra $1,000, and it's increasing your IPERS benefits. It's way more long-term beneficial for our associates, and maybe part of that is they don't see that. It's a thank you for your hard work. We're sorry that you didn't get from the governor. This is what we feel is in your best interest,
We'd like you to stay.
and we'd like you to stay.
I think the IPERS is a big part of it,
It's huge.
that a lot of them might not be
That'll
educated
go
on.
further than any.
And are we doing the dollar plus the typical 2.2% on top of that, or are we doing the $1 total?
It was $1 total, I think, yeah. 15.60 to 6, and that was still the 8%.
Right.
Yeah.
But instead of what we had agreed upon a few years back, 2.2%,
2.2,
we're doing
2.2%.
8
Right.
we're going to request that.
Yeah, because I believe that when I calculated the 1,000, it was more like a 50-cent raise. And then we wanted to get to the dollar to be competitive with the local, like with some of our retail establishments and other places in the community, to be more competitive with Casey's and other places. That
I can
was,
see how that was missing now that I think back. Like, we had a lot of moving parts going with a lot of different
Especially if
teachers that weren't included, admin, associates, meet and confer.
right.
That was a lot
It's a
at
juggling.
one time. But we do want our messaging to be clear.
Right, well, and we kind of need to figure out, where did the idea of
The The extra dollar.
Yeah, where did that come
I
from?
don't-
Because if that belief was out there and it was somehow propagated, then now the idea of saying, and look what we have here, kind of
Yeah.
gets
Yeah, I wasn't aware.
deflated.
That's
Yeah.
interesting to find out.
I was kind of shocked that there was a negative reaction. Like, I was like,
Right.
wait, what? Has like,
Well, I think these conversations between board members and the administration started clear back at the end of December, beginning of January, on, how can we thank the associate staff for everything that they've done that maximizes the benefit to them. And we spent a lot of hours in the finance committee trying to figure out how we were going to pay for it.
Sorry, just to bring that all to your guys' attention.
Thank you.
Next is our technology copier bids. We spoke a little bit about this today in IT. The recommendation from Ray is acceptance of the Infomax bid number 2 is what's recommended. And that's because of the longevity of those printers that are being offered by the Infomax 2 quote versus the other bids there. So we're looking at more than just the least expensive bid there. We're also looking at the quality of the equipment. Is that correct?
But we ran it through that rubric, we saw the point values.
Yeah.
And Ray, remind me, we talked probably a month ago about this. There's a contract that's also in place with this that provides the toner.
Well, it's not a contract with the toner. Typically, in a typical lease agreement, which we're not doing, there would be. In this case, the toner will still come through this company, will still come through Infomax by way of an insurance program.
The break fix insurance that we've talked about in the past.
That pays for copiers.
Yeah, it's how it does, it's does.
Can we get another update from them on how
I
that-
usually get one at the end of June,
Okay.
so we can see that.
Okay.
They like to kind of finish that a
Sure.
quarter at a time, so yeah, I can get that.
So in the RFPS, they said whoever gets this could also get that toner piece as well. So that'll do runs but by way of the insurance.
Is that an unlimited amount, or is that,
Pretty much.
okay?
It's an unlimited amount, yeah.
Paper's not.
Paper's not.
Just toner maintenance.
No staples either.
No staples. Which actually, one of the neat things, these new copiers, it's a minor detail, but they actually have what they call an eco staple, staple without an actual staple. So it's kind of like stitches the toner together. So that's
Oh.
an expensive.
Stitches.
Down as well, kind of neat.
Use that in my head when I
I was thinking the medical community's gonna be upset. That technology takes another step.
We won't be upset not paying for as many staples.
Right. So just a motion to approve, so Ray can get on this.
Make a motion to accept the Infomax copier bid number 2 as recommended.
Motion made by Tim to approve. Seconded by Brian. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the 2021-2022 certified budget amendment. We first need to have a public hearing, so we'll open the hearing at this time. Donna, is there anyone here to speak for or against this?
Unless somebody's at the table here that has a for or against something.
And that means we can go ahead and close the public hearing. And now, we need a motion to approve the 2021 certified budget amendment.
Motion is stated.
Motion made by Mac,
Second.
seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the board finance committee meeting report. Yes, we met with Travis Squires, Piper Sandler. Unfortunately, already, because of interest rates going up from what, end of January, February,
January till
to
now.
right now, we've lost bonding capacity by $8 million. So that will show you.
Bonding capacity we have, we just don't have project dollars.
We don't have project on,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay, yeah, that's correct, thank you. So that shows you what timing does and interest rate impact over that short period of time.
Very short period of time.
Very short, yeah, 3 months.
Probably should drive home the point of September.
Right. So he showed us, he also brought up a good point about us making sure that option number 3, the build another building, that we've really thought about that. And I know we have in our own minds and then on paper and between each other in groups and stuff like that, but maybe we haven't really discussed that publicly as a board. Maybe we haven't presented that to the community of why we're not doing that little black box option. So we've asked Laura at Envision to just take that little black box and make a 1-page out of that to help us understand, like, why are we not going down the road of building a new high school at another location? Why are we going to continue to go with option B, replace in place? And she's doing that. She mentioned a little bit of that today on the call, which I thought would be good information for you guys. So again, we only have bonding capacity at different points of time. And so we have this much money available here, then we gotta wait to get to here. Now, a construction project, if you only have this much money, that means you can only build so much at this point in time. So what she looked at was, well, if we build a whole brand new building, what could we do right away? Well, we would first, this is scary, we could build enough classrooms so we can get our land, clear our land, get it all ready and stuff. We'd have enough money to get that and 3 grade levels of classrooms and a place for the kids to eat. However, we would still have to transport food back and forth because we do not have enough money to build a kitchen yet. So you can see it would be a very staged approach, because then we'd have to wait for the next group of money to come available. Money comes available, now they can do more construction, maybe they put in a kitchen, but she'll explore and expand out what exactly we can do in all those time periods. So I think we kind of knew that kind of stuff, but I think it's good to show the public that hey, this is why we are not going down this road. We can't do that, and we don't want to tie up all of our funds, 10 years worth of funds, into one high school project, because of the fact that we may have other things that we have to do 10 years, in the next 10 years. We have a lot of other things that we could have to do, and we don't know those things maybe right now. We didn't know the high school a couple of years ago. But what we are doing is we're solving a problem with the high school. We're keeping our current campus. This is our campus. This was the vision years ago when they put the middle school up and the ball fields and the soccer fields, and keeping one giant campus here, So it's not building a new campus. We're continuing to build upon the vision and update that school, because that does need it. There are problems that have happened or will continue to happen as that school continues to age. The systems will break down. So that was one thing that Travis kind of brought out to us would be a good thing to have. So Laura's going to get that put together, and then we're going to put it on the website so that the public who may think like, hey, that's a great idea. And again, I think it's a great idea too, but there's constraints and there's restrictions, and we need to show them why we can't do those things. We can't always get a brand new building for every single one of our schools, but we can't do that. So there's reasons for it. So that's what Travis talked to us about. We're going to get that. Laura's working with that. She's also working on putting together a committee.
Just talking with some community members.
Of community members that can that can begin getting this out. So my question to you guys as board members is, she needs 8 to 20 community members. I want you guys to think of good, solid community members who can take this message out, so that if we do, we're working towards the September vote. If we do go with the September vote, the next stage is the petition, but we've got to have a campaign over the summer months when everybody's gone. And we have an organization working on that with Envision, that'll help us with that, but we've got to have boots on the ground to be able to carry that message over the summer months so that we get a positive vote. So I need help from you guys as board members to know who should be on that committee. And I'm going to ask you guys not to just give us a name, but to actually go ask those people and say, it'll mean a lot more if you guys go to those people and say, we need you. Like, I've been serving as a board member. It's time for you to help serve the community in this capacity. We need you to serve. And you guys, I want you guys to do that, because you guys know, we all know different people, and we need to get that committee strong. So there's a strong group of people that can take this message across the community. So Laura needs that in the next few days. So hopefully by early next week, you guys could have some people that say, like, Laura, here's the names of these individuals.
You can send them to me and I can give them
Send
to
them to
her,
John.
yeah. And she did say that there would be one, she would suggest that we have one school board member on that
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah, is there anyone that would like to take that?
What do we think the commitment's gonna be?
I mean, you asked that and she,
I can't remember what she said, but it's gotta be, I mean, I think it's gonna be a little bit of a commitment. It's not gonna be just easy, it is gonna be some extra, I mean, you're looking at things of like planning social media, blast. You're thinking of, do we do mailers? Do we host events? Do we go to these different groups and talk? Do we look at
I think
voter records to understand who our voting blocks are, who votes in these types of elections? It's going to be some homework.
I think one place we really need to be like strategic about is to get a hold of the crew that bonded for the YMCA here in town. I mean, there was about a group of 50 community members that provided all the marketing and the advertising and what the vote is and exactly what it entails. And it was a really good combination of young parents, older, well-established community members, business owners and everything. So that might be a place to start.
As much as I would love to commit to that, I think maybe that's up to Suzanne.
What? Community relations?
Being on that committee.
What? Yeah, whatever. No, my spare time.
Well, that's the thing. You guys all have families.
Well, I think we can think about that too. Right? When do
I
you
think all
want
of us
the
can do a
names
little,
by?
but we
What's
do
that?
need.
When do you want the names by?
probably, she wanted to wait till after Memorial Day, which is
Oh.
next
Yeah.
Monday, so.
Yeah.
So we'll just bring them to the work,
Next
bring
week.
them to the work.
You guys also need to be careful, because that communication cannot be on your board emails.
What communication?
The communication of like any type of a yes for the committee.
Oh,
We
okay,
can't-
got it.
We
yeah.
can't act in a board capacity for something that we're
Right.
gonna vote on.
Right.
We have to
It's a public
act as
member.
you have to act as a data
Community
member of that, yeah.
The parent.
Yes.
So it's, so just be careful, make sure you guys are
You don't act
careful.
well as a parent.
And you can talk about the vote, you can talk about the vote, you can
Yeah,
talk
all
about
of
the
us can do
reasons
that.
that we are looking at this, you just can't say,
Nope.
vote yes.
Makes sense. I understand that.
And can you explain, I was having sound problems when she was talking, where does that money come from on that vote yes section?
Well, she really didn't talk about that much.
She didn't?
No,
Okay.
it would be, it's part of it is the project money that we're dealing with our PR guy, $2,500 a month.
Okay.
That's that piece. If there's signs and stuff like that, that probably could come out of either our SAVE or PEPAL. I gotta double check.
She did
See
say
if
there
that could come out of the
was
general fund.
somebody that was offering some funds.
Right, for, you could, the vote yes, so we can't really do anything as a school in the vote yes piece. So they would have a treasurer, that committee would have a treasurer and funds available for that, not through the school district. The school district would pay for, they were paying for the PR person to be involved. I need to ask about to see how that works, yeah. I don't know, so, yeah. If that could, because that shouldn't be, if it's, I know that we talked about that, you can't be vote yes with him, they're just giving just the facts, right?
So that, so the next several pages goes into the numbers that Travis provided there, and just, I mean, some of you guys aren't numbers people and don't love all that, but really what he was showing is that we've already lost $8 million.
Page 88 is the best slide that kind of shows the change there.
Yeah. So that's like a gut punch. We saved $8 million though, right, over the last few years in future interest.
We talked considerably about the fact that when you hike taxes, or when you hike interest, your effort is to bring prices down. And so we're kind of in the perfect storm, if you think about it. We're right at the cusp where interest rates are starting to go up. Yeah, exactly. We hope. You're exactly right. Interest rates are starting to go up. It's supposed to drive prices down, but in the construction industry, they've had high prices. And so it's kind of like
Yeah, because if this doesn't get control of it.
Right.
A lot more problems than just this.
I was taking two bits of information. I was taking his comments there, and then I went out looking at the media, and they were talking about the top of the mountain where they were thinking that we had crested. I don't know if that's true or not, but my hope is we have.
Page 90 is the kind of how the sources break down from the GO bonds, which would be the voted piece, and the save bonds is the sales tax piece, which is not voted, but it's voted by you guys as a board, not voted from the public, because it's the penny sales tax. So you can see how it parses along the way, the GO bonds little by little. And the first two are basically the high school project at this point in time. So you're looking at mainly GO bonds, but you have that just under 20 million of save bonds in 2024. Gives you close to 100 million to do that. Then in 2028 and moving forward, that would be a next project of what you can do in the future. He's very conservative with his valuation increases because he needs to be, though we may see, if you see a jump, but the comment he made, and Rob may know this, but he talked about how they put a governor on the increases of valuation. So you can only do 3% valuation growth per year, but you have all your new builds. That goes on there as well. So your 3%, maybe if you're going like crazy, you could have a 5% increase, but it's all the things coming on the rolls. And that happened about 10, 12 years ago when they put that on. So he said you're missing about 8 to 9% of valuation growth that we lost because of the way they put that in place. So it becomes more difficult to do something large, with a one fell swoop, since we have other outstanding bonds.
This is where I just don't get how school districts of smaller sizes are going to be able to do something. It's really scary because they're going to have.
Well, they wouldn't have. Here's the thing, that a smaller district does not have a lot of debt because they're going to build one and done, where we have several $1 million, as we can talk about in the audit, of debt that we still have.
With like an aging building that's 70, 80 years old that they need to rebuild, redo.
It's a smaller building, you know, but they might be able to do it if they have zero debt, you know. But they also, small districts also have to go through the scrutiny of the Department of Ed to justify, are you declining enrollment, are you increasing, are you stable? And if you're below so many students, they question that.
The next thing was an audit committee report that we had on Jane, Waylon, Nina Piper, and remember his name?
Tim Cocker.
Yes. The three of them sat, Tim, sit on that from the public, and then John and myself were there. We reviewed it with the auditor. They are a new auditing company this year.
This is our second year.
Second year.
Yeah.
Really, everything was very positive. It's in your, let's hear, if you go to the very back, that's where kind of the information is. And everything was, I think, for the most part, okay, no concerns at all.
The negative lunch balances.
Mentioned, right? What's that?
The negative lunch balances is a continuum.
Yeah. But that will be resolved here very soon.
Yeah.
Jane did talk about, and I understand what she means by this, but she kind of talked about like the importance of making sure that that doesn't happen again. And I don't know how we do that because we want all of our children to eat. So I don't know how we balance that with all of a sudden then we're back to, and I don't know if you guys saw that announcement today that went out for those of you guys, everyone's in here, it's parents, we're all parents in here, so that information about school lunches will begin to be charged again next year and stuff. That's gonna be, I mean, you guys know what the economy's like right now, so that's gonna be a rub. So I'm hoping that we'll send that out a few times over the summer to just keep reminding people, put it on social media just so they are reminded. But I don't know, I feel like we've got to do something. I don't know if Abby and her team need to figure out like a way to get in there faster and not let that debt accumulate and say, but I don't know how you do that and balance it with letting every kid eat. I don't know how you do that.
Right.
Accept everyone that applies for free and reduced lunch.
Well, they have to go through the process.
Right, all the paperwork.
And we just, March of 2022 was 999 students were free and reduced this year. That's the biggest it's been.
In our district.
So we have full waiver, partial waivers, and temporary waivers, right? So if a family applies for a partial waiver, right, because of their finance, that's when they qualify for, but we start to see them fall behind, do we have interventions to move them to the full waiver?
Well, we can't move them, they have to qualify to do that. I mean, the foods, it
That's
is
where I
a
think
federal
that's-
program.
That's where I think the majority of this money is gonna come, is even the partial people are gonna fall behind in, even though it's reduced price, is getting that. So, like, how do we jump, or the temporary waivers, like,
And I'm not following on the temporary waiver piece.
well, it's in our handbook that you can get a temporary, like, if you have a temporary financial change in your.
So that's a waiver for your student fees, your
That's
student.
for fees and books and academics and
Not
stuff.
food service. I mean, food service is so tied to the federal government.
Right.
that They tell you exactly what your income can be and what that would allow you to benefit from. So free is, and it tells you the dollar amounts.
So we, in all these silos of money school districts have, there is not one that we can
Tap
tap into just a little bit every month to pull
Not-
over to this.
Not with federal versus, I mean, it's food service versus the general fund. So the general fund can't do this. Abby has we've talked a little bit and we're still talking about this. She would like to see if she could still offer the free meals with.
Because we're up 92%.
Not free breakfasts, because she could afford to do that. And in talking with the Department of Ed, as long as you have more than 3 months operating in your balance, which we never have until now, we have that, we could offer that. Once we hit that 3-month operating, we would have to either stop or we'd have to reevaluate it.
Right. So just from like a broader picture, so you guys understand, so all the SNAP benefits went away for, like, the proclamation, the emergency ended. So a lot of people aren't even filling out paperwork for the supplemental nutrition assistance program because they may qualify for $76 and the paperwork's about 15 pages long, right? So people are not gonna do that for $72 a month. So Central Iowa Food Pantries, which includes Warren County, are up 92% in serving since this went into effect in the middle of April. So locally, we're just seeing that too. So if we can't find a way or kind of think outside the box or see whatever we can do, this is going to be a contentious spot for us because of the need we're seeing right now in the community. And the 2 summer meal spots are just in interesting locations.
But I agree with everything you said, but there's families on that list that are not on those lists that could pay,
They could
they
have,
choose not to pay.
yeah.
So are
But
they
now
just
if we get to
ignoring
this-
emails? Ignoring
Oh, yeah.
emails and phone calls? Do we do phone calls or are we just doing
You do,
technology?
well, and I think after a while, they've stopped, you know.
So do we hold?
As we have a
Do we
new.
hold diplomas?
No, you cannot.
Could you have Abby look at the current number right now, the current balance, and figure out what percentage of that money is for families that actually have a need that cannot pay, and families that have not filed any of that type of paperwork?
Some of them are very old, some
Sure,
of them.
sure.
Balances.
Yeah. I think that would be good to know, because then we kind of get an accurate picture of who's taking advantage and
Well,
who actually
and-
has a need.
Yeah, yeah, I can look into that.
Well, so just from my understanding, because this is kind of new, I know we've chatted about it, but it sounds to me, I want to make sure I'm clear. So this balance or this deficit that we're going to
Wipe out.
clear out, but only because of COVID assistance, right?
Actually, we're using preschool funds that is an excess balance.
Okay.
Portion of that.
Okay, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
We're clearing it, right.
that was mostly accumulated from the example Rob just gave.
Well, some, I don't know the exact, because some of them just wouldn't apply, and they just keep eating. And so they could have applied and didn't, but just haven't paid. And I don't know we don't know everybody's
Okay.
situation
Okay.
by any means.
Well, okay, that was one part. The next part that I just want to make sure I'm understanding is, so right now there's a process in place, not a process, but the reality in place that if you just don't pay your lunch bill, there's nothing any local community schools can do to say, hey, you need to pay your bill. There's nothing, it sounds like.
We have you have a policy that says $25 and they should not eat. But again, you want them to eat. So you're at loggerheads as to what you do, right?
You're like,
Okay,
Just-
that's what I thought was probably
We
happening.
do have
I
a
just wanna make sure
policy,
that-
you're
and that
disciplining
was.
the kid, parents' issues.
Yes, right.
Might not.
That's what I want to make sure, that's what I was understanding, but I want to make sure, because you are pretty much.
I'm talking about the one.
Right, right. And, unless we, and as seniors and people that move, we do send an email out to the people that are getting refunds and say, would you like a refund, or would you like this to go to students that need help? And so, we had 50 that came through recently, and probably half of them have said, I will send it to people. And some of them, it's $5, others it's $70. So people are generous with what they had left in there. I mean, they didn't have it before, so they said, go ahead. So that was nice.
I don't know how to fix this issue.
Wicked problem.
Yeah, what's that?
It's a wicked problem.
Well, and it's not only our district.
It is every district,
I just want to make sure I understood it correctly, because you're right, there's.
But we get hit every year. from an audit.
Well, and again, now we will, if we zero this out, it's gonna be much easier to see where we go, and it'll be kind of a new reality for us to see
It's
where.
the reset button, and we can start tracking
See,
it from
yeah, right. And once they hit 25, they're not supposed to eat, right? So,
We've done this for many years, 10 years plus. Was this 10 years ago?
it may be longer than that. Again, we started out, when I came here, it was $77,000 in deficit accounts. So we're down to about 37-ish,
Where did that $77,000?
That's my first thing.
Wait, what's that? We're negative in that fund. Obviously, there's money that has to cover
Yeah,
that.
and that's,
Where did
that,
that come from?
it is in the balance, you know, and that's what, that food service director said at the time, said, we have this cash flow, but we cannot transfer money within food service to pay those off because it's not allowed under the federal regs.
And there's nothing that the state legislature can do to help.
They haven't, just besides, you know, there is in that, the refund or the reimbursements we receive from food service or food program, we get a larger chunk is federal and a smaller chunk is state. I mean, there is a little bit of state money that comes within that reimbursement we receive monthly, but it's by far more federal
But
funds.
every family has the opportunity to be able to fill out paperwork
Yes,
right
yes. And we are, one of the
They
things.
start to go, is there other opportunities throughout the year for them to fill out that paperwork?
It's on the website at all
At all
times.
times.
And now it's fillable electronically, which it hadn't been.
Okay.
Because, again, the Fed said that you can't do this. It needs to be a wet signature.
So if we start to see a family getting into trouble, we can talk to them about that.
I mean, that would be, you know, the attentiveness of the food service.
Do they talk to those families about that?
They
Or
have.
are they just calling as a bill collector at that point?
Well, again, I don't know that I'm not there when they do that, so I would need to, I mean, we can talk through this. I mean, it's gonna be kind of a new landscape for us, so we can move forward and try to do it.
Right. I just see a swelling need.
Interesting this, the new superintendent, he's still where he's at.
Because I think was it Des Moines just announced that they're doing all free meals for all their.
They are in
district
an area that they can do that. We can't do that. I mean,
It's not, that's more.
we have people in need, but majority,
Federal.
it seems like it balances that we have people that don't need as well, so.
Well, it's based on your county's overall income too. And so Warren County, we don't have a lot of wealthy people that put us in a higher income pocket. So that's why it's not, we only have one low to moderate income neighborhood. There's a lot more than that, but according to census, that's what you have to go on.
Maybe sometime it'd be good just to hear from Abby, like what her plans on how to make sure that this doesn't become a huge issue and how she plans on working with families that do need help. Or not maybe just once, but then down the road all of a sudden need help.
Would you like her at a board meeting or would you like her at a committee meeting?
Committee's fine, that's fine.
Is there any rules against corporate donations towards that?
Had that in the past.
We've got received donations in the past, and that's partly how it's come down, you know, that,
They took some good chunks out
we
of it.
did some big chunks out of it, yeah.
Does that qualify as a tax deductible donation?
I write a thank you to whoever, yeah. Yep. So,
I think we need to maintain our position on these kids eat.
I agree.
I think we need to be more, I don't know if aggressive is the word, but let them, make sure they have filled out the form. You're already in this, please fill out the form, because you don't know if you'll qualify, maybe you will. If you don't, you know, we need to figure out what the next step is. But if you do, the benefit of the district, you get more, the reimbursement you receive from, they call it a type A lunch or a class A lunch. So from a paid student, you get so much. I don't have the dollars in front of me, but small amount back, even on a paid. So if you're paying $3 for your kid to eat lunch, the feds pay 40 cents or 50 cents per meal. You know, the reduced is is obviously higher, but the free meal is not lucrative, but it helps to pay. It's a very generous reimbursement from the feds. So.
Yeah, but you're not gonna qualify for that if the person doesn't fill out the paperwork.
Right, and so that, I think that our
I think we should
our
have,
focus
I think
is
the hard line, if you wanna talk about where a hard line should be, it should be at the paperwork.
Understanding that there's a lot of people that don't qualify for that and are in desperate need of help. According to the Fed, they might not apply because they make too much, but their house, because of where we live, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't qualify for services and everyone thinks they're fine.
Sure,
And they're not. I'm just saying, I know that there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
But don't get in this mindset of, if they've applied and they don't qualify, then their life is good.
No, that's not it. My thing is I understand what she's saying about the fact that there's more money to be gained. So let's say there's 10 kids that didn't fill out the paperwork, and they're not getting the government match because they didn't fill out the paperwork. If those 10 kids' parents would have qualified for the federal amount of money, we just lost all of that money on those 10 kids, which actually helps the program. And so if you at least set the standard of you'll fill out the paperwork, then you're at least capturing those 10 kids and the dollars that come with it. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying anything about whether or not somebody has need or doesn't have need based on how the paperwork comes back, but step one is have them fill out the paperwork. So if we do qualify for those dollars, that we're capturing them.
This is just a question. Can the paperwork be attached to the registration?
It is. It is in the, right?
It's right in there.
But if we just had every single family fill it out and apply, can we do that?
We can't require it, no.
Can't require it.
No.
And it's like a very specific form, it's not like we can add to the form.
And honestly, I feel like something comes in the mail too.
I think paperwork,
Like
it
it's
has.
not just online, but something comes in the mail to our house because I get it and I look at it every year.
That's been a requirement in the past, so with this new now electronic form that's never been allowed before completely, I'm wondering if we still will do that. I bet we still will. I think that we do a mailing, because you got people that don't have a phone or don't have an email address. So we try to make sure that way you know you hit everybody, or that's your perception that you're hitting everybody, if you mail it to them. Kiosks we have those here for registration.
A kiosk is available for this form?
For this form would be available for it. Right, I guess, right?
They can use it for anything. I mean, typically it's used for enrollment.
Might be part of the other messaging. That's where I'm going with that.
We've got, you can come in, people will help you with this, you know.
Right. There's,
And this may be just temporary for you. I mean, as a respect thing, you know, that, you know, fill it out now, and when things change, you can go off it.
Do our like administrators or counselors know families that need to fill these forms out?
Well, we have to be careful, because it's a civil rights situation so you really can't, you know.
They can't.
You'd say it to everybody. You would say, you know, please fill this out, you know. And if somebody came to someone, they addressed you first, you could talk to them about it.
right.
But you've got to be, civil rights is a big issue with food service, and because it's so federally tied.
Okay, that's the audit. Fiscal year 2021,
Just need to accept it.
we don't have to vote on it, just vote to accept it.
If we want to go through it, I do have tabs. If anybody wants to talk about it, I
I'll
can
make a
talk.
motion to approve the 2020-2021 financial audit.
Motion made by Mac. Seconded by Ryan. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We have to set the date.
So again, here's back to what we were talking about, right? So you see the two different amounts that we're looking at. 37 is a maximum. I don't think we'll be above that, but I wanted to raise up to make sure that I'm covering that for the food service balances. And then the ineligible state teacher retention staff. So this piece is, both of those are coming out of that preschool fund. But the board has to approve that, because the flexibility funds is a process that happened about 5 years ago or so, that the steps that we need to take, we need to follow their guidelines, and one of those is a public hearing and then an approval.
motion on that recommendation in letter B?
Motion to set June 14th, 2022 at 5:30 PM as the date and time for the flexibility account public hearing.
Motion made by Tim,
Second.
seconded by Ben, Matt? Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the facility projects update.
A few things moving a little bit. The seclusion rooms they are on site, they are working, originally they said June 6th, but they moved it up to this week, so hopefully we'll be done in about 2.5 weeks, he thought. So that will be nice to have off this schedule. And our other projects are starting, well, the middle school project is starting June 6th as well. Get the staff out of there so they can work, so.
Next is the board policies. This would be the second reading? No, yeah, second reading. Give second reading approval to board policies 502.1 through 502.10 would be the motion.
Motion. 2.1 through 502.10.
Motion made by Ryan.
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any further discussion by the board on these policies? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next is the next board calendar.
Tuesday meeting. So remember when you're celebrating the 4th or the Memorial Day, that the next day we have a meeting at 5 versus 5:30. So
That's our work session. There are sack lunches.
I've got sack lunches coming.
You will be here. You'll be here.
Yep.
Is that open to the public?
It is.
It is. Usually nobody comes.
Yeah. It hasn't been.
Might not be a bad idea for each of us to come with some strategic goals that we think
I think,
are
yeah.
areas that we want to, what's important to us.
Probably 4. And I don't know if you want to spread them out as
Yeah.
different areas of focus.
Nicely provided to me.
And then,
Thank you.
is that, in that, can we put, I don't know if there's an agenda, but on that, like, what is the chain of command in the school district when our superintendent is either away or, I mean, do we have set policy on what our chain of command is? I
Well,
think it's worth thinking about.
as a discussion on Tuesday.
Yes, as a discussion on Tuesday. And then you want us to bring those community names, right? For the.
Yes.
We got homework, yeah.
What was that?
That's a good time to bring them.
The community names for the bond.
Who can serve on a yes committee.
Make a motion to approve
To adjourn?
Motion made by, to adjourn this meeting. Seconded by Ryan. All of those in favor say aye. Motion approved.
Johnny, do you think we'll even have time to look at the handbook during that meeting?
Say that again,
Do you
please.
think we'll have time to look at the handbook stuff during that meeting?